What's up guys, Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp quick tutorial for you. So in today's video, I wanted to go through it and I wanted to model a stool. So specifically in this video, I wanted to talk about the power of using copies along an arc or a circle using the rotate tool. Before we get started, today's video is brought to you by Shaper 3D. Shaper 3D is a 3D modeling app specifically designed for use on your iPad with the Apple Pencil. Since SketchUp doesn't currently have a mobile modeling experience, consider checking out Shaper 3D if you're looking for a way to create 3D models on your iPad. It has a modeling interface that's similar to SketchUp's, but it's optimized for mobile. Plus, any model created in Shaper 3D can be exported to SketchUp or other desktop CAD formats. If you're interested in trying Shaper 3D, check it out at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/Shaper3D. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so what I want to do in this tutorial is I want to draw this chair. And I want to use symmetry in order to do this, as well as the rotate tool in copy mode. And so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to draw a circle to start off. So in this case, I'm going to draw a circle with 24 sides, and we may adjust that in a second. And I'm going to go ahead and set my radius to 12 inches just by typing in 12. So we're just going to have a simple circle. That's going to make up the top of our chair. And so when I push-pull this right now, you can see how it's a little bit blocky around the corners. So I'm actually going to select this, go up into my number of segments and make this into a 48-sided circle, just because this will make this a little bit smoother. And so what we're going to do is we're going to extrude this up using the push-pull tool. And I'm going to extrude this up maybe 3 inches. And that's going to make kind of the base metal piece of our chair. And then I'm going to tap the control key. When I tap the control key, you can see how the little plus shows up around my cursor. What that means is this is going to enter create new face mode. When I enter create new face mode, what this means is now this is going to create a new face when I extrude this up again, instead of just creating a regular push-pulled face, which wouldn't create this line here. And the reason for that is because we want to round this off. I'm going to use the extension round corner from Fredo 6 in order to do this. This is a great application for this. It's a free extension. But you can also just, if you wanted to, you could draw an arc here and use the follow me tool to round this off as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to activate round corner. I'm just going to click on this top face or this top edge, and you can adjust your offset to whatever you want this to be. So you can make this 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to leave this at a 1/2 inch. What that's going to do is that's going to give me a nice curve on this top piece here. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to group these separately, just because I like to group things so that if they're going to be in here as different materials, or they may be something that I'm going to edit separately, I have them in groups just so if I need to come in here and make a change or something like that, they're easily editable without all your geometry kind of merging together. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to draw kind of the centerpiece of this circle. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click inside this group. I'm going to right click on this edge and I'm going to click Find Center. So that's a great option inside of SketchUp. That shows you where the center of a circle is. You can see how it drops a guide point in here. And then I'm just going to draw another circle, and we'll call this maybe 1.5 inches wide. This is going to be kind of our center support piece for the chair, and I'm just going to extrude this down. And so in fact, I'm actually going to undo that and I'm going to make this about 1 inch wide. That was a little big. So I'm just going to push-pull this down. And usually the way these work in chairs when you look at like reference images is they kind of hang down a little bit. I'm going to make this hang down maybe 18 inches or something like that. And so this is going to be the central support piece of our chair. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to select it, right click, and I'm going to make this into a group. And you can see how as I make this into a group, really the reason that I'm doing this is just I don't want that geometry in here merging. So now we have kind of our central support piece. Well, now what we need to do in this case is we need to draw a couple other pieces along this line here. And so what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to turn on X-ray mode. So that's something that's shown up in your styles toolbar. I'm just going to turn that on just so I can kind of see the center here. What that'll allow me to do is that'll allow me to come in here and draw a line down the middle of this. Now I can actually come in here and draw things centered on that point, even though there's actually geometry in here. You can see how it's really easy to kind of inference off of that line. And so what I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to draw a circle, probably about We'll call this about 4 inches down, so you can see how I drew another guide point in here just so I have something to kind of reference off of. And in this case, we're going to draw a circle that goes outside of your central support post. So in this case, maybe like 2.5 inches or something like that. And so that's just going to make up one of our pieces that makes up the way that the chair works. And that may be a little bit big, but we'll go ahead and leave it for right now. So I'm going to draw a circle in here, and I'm going to pull that up, and then from that same point, I'm going to draw another circle that's going to be wider than that. And you can see how this is kind of choppy again, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to adjust the number of segments just to make this smooth. And that one, I'm going to pull down probably something very narrow, maybe 3/16 of an inch or something like this. So this is almost like a big washer piece. So this is actually a piece that's going to support my chair. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this. I'm going to right click this one. I'm going to make into a component because this is something that I'm going to repeat. And so I'm just going to call this chair leg support. And I'm going to click create. So what that'll do is that'll create a copy of this support. And then I'm going to use the move tool in copy mode. So select this object, tap the M key, and then tap Control to enter copy mode. And I'm just going to click. I'm going to move my mouse straight down on the blue axis. And we'll go ahead and call this something like 2 inches. And then we'll click again. So what we have is we have our copy here that now our chair support can run along. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn X-ray mode off for a second. I'm going to erase out my default model, and I'm just going to move this so that the center of this object is centered on the origin. So that's just going to make inferencing a lot easier. And then I'll move it along the green axis. And you may consider actually when you start doing something like this, just going ahead and setting this up this way. So in this case I didn't, so we just now have that centered along this axis. And so what that's going to do is that's going to make this a little bit easier for us to come in here and do the next part, which is drawing our chair leg. And so in order to draw our chair leg, what I'm going to do in this case is, first of all, I'm going to turn hidden geometry on. The only reason I'm really doing that is because that gives me something that's a little easier to inference off of. And I'm going to draw, I'm basically going to draw a face. So maybe something that's about 3 feet long. I'm basically drawing a canvas that I can then come in here and draw the profile of my chair leg along. So just a face that's really easy to inference to. We're going to erase out most of it a little bit later. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to rough out the look and size of my chair leg. So I'm going to start off and I'm just going to draw probably a couple rectangles in here, maybe a couple lines, just to give me kind of an idea of what that chair leg is going to look like. So it's probably going to come down here, maybe something like this. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to have a sloping line right here. This is just kind of the way that my brain works and the way that I can kind of rough out the shape. This is just giving me something kind of mentally in order to think about as I do this. So I can kind of look at how thick or thin this leg is by doing this. And then once I've done that, once I've kind of roughed out this shape, then I can come in and I can start rounding everything off. Because my chair leg isn't really going to look like this, it's going to be rounded. And so I can come in here and I can round this edge off. I can round this edge off. And you can kind of erase out some of this extra stuff as you go. But you can see how I'm just kind of roughing out what the shape is going to look like. Probably you'd get a little piece right here, because generally speaking, a lot of pieces like this aren't really square. They're all kind of rounded off on the edges. And so maybe we'll round off our edges down here as well. And so now we have kind of the profile of our chair leg roughed out. What we'll do in this case is we'll push this leg out about 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm just going to triple click on that to select the whole thing. And so once I've triple clicked on it, I can go ahead and I can make this a component, and we can just call this something like chair leg profile. And so what I've done here is I've created the profile for my chair leg. Well, in this case, this chair is actually made up of two different metal pieces. So there's a piece here and then there's a piece over here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the hidden geometry along this circle in order to kind of center this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this so that it's centered right here. And then I'm going to create a copy and move it across so that it's centered on this piece right there. And so that's probably even a little bit wide, so maybe what I'll do instead is I'll just center these on these points. And for right now, we're going to assume that there's no support that actually goes in here. There probably would be in real life, and maybe that's something we can do a little bit later. But what we can do now is we can select both of these and just right click, and we can just make this a component and call this something like chair leg assembly. So it's another component, and the reason we're using a component is because it's something that repeats. And so when it's something that repeats, we want to make it a component, so when we make a copy, the other copies will change with it as well. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use the move tool or the rotate tool in copy mode. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to select my object, activate the rotate tool, click on this point and set a base point. And then in this case, because we want this to go 360 degrees, that means we need a copy at 120 degrees per angle. So we would move this over and we would type in 120 degrees. But before we do that, we're going to tap the control key. The control key is going to activate copy mode. So in this case, I'm going to type in 120. That's the number of degrees I want this to go. And hit the enter key. And then I'm going to type in times 2. When I type in times 2, what that's going to do is that's going to create another copy of this, also at 120 degrees. And so now we've got kind of the basic shape of our chair roughed out, but if you remember, because we created these as components, if I was to come in here and let's say we wanted some kind of a divider piece, you can see how when I create a copy in one of these, it creates a copy in all of them because they're all instances of that same component. So that's kind of the power of components in this case. And then if I wanted to, I could select this, make it a group, and then I could just make a copy maybe centered right here. Use the move tool in copy mode to create a copy here, and then I'll just type in divided by 2. That'll create another copy between this point and that point. So you can see how making that change is really easy using the move tool in copy mode. And so the last thing we're going to do in this case is we're going to come in here and we're going to draw kind of the support circle that runs along the bottom here. So there's going to be a metal piece in the middle of all this that's going to support these legs. And so because we're centered on the origin point now, this is really easy to do. I can just draw a line down to where I want this to be. I can just draw a circle. And I'll go ahead and delete out the face this creates, and I'm going to go ahead and make this into something like a 48. Or in this case, because I'm going to extrude an object along it, maybe I'll do 64. But what I want to do now, so I'm just going to find a point on this line, and I'm just going to draw a little circle that's going to kind of represent the piece of steel I want to extrude, and I'm just going to use the follow me tool to extrude that in a circle. And so what that does is that'll create that metal support down here that we can now use, and we'll go ahead and make it a group. You can see how now we have a metal support running along this as well. So now I can go in, I can do view, and I can turn off my hidden geometry. You can see how now I have this chair that I've created. There's a few other things you could do, like if you really wanted to come in here and create the threading along this to make it look more realistic, you could definitely do that. You could add materials, but this is kind of a general workflow for how you can create an object like this really quickly and really easily. So that's where I'm going to end this video. Leave a comment below, let me know what you thought. Do you like this style of video? I just love having that SketchUp conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, even if it's only $1 a month. So make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.